Alright guys, the first info on Firefly's kit is out for some time now, and I know I'm a bit late for covering it, as usual, but I want to double check all my calculations and everything, as she does have a pretty complicated kit. In this video, I'll explain how her kit works, giving my first impressions and stuff. I'll also discuss some key points to keep in mind while playing her, like should you build crit on her or just go full break effect. Then we'll discuss her overall damage output and some initial build ideas. So leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and let's get started. So first things first, Firefly or Sam is a fire destruction character with kind of a similar playstyle to Jingliu, with an enhanced state, and you get to that state with his ultimate. But before that, let's talk about her skill. Consumes 50% of Sam's max HP and regenerates 50% of Sam's max energy. Then he deals fire damage to a single target. Now 50% of his max energy seems a lot, but Sam has an energy cost of 240. Yes, you heard that right, 240. And that skill makes perfect sense for him, as with just 2 uses of his skill, he gets his ultimate and enters his enhanced state. It's similar to Jingliu, as she also needs to use her skill twice to get her enhanced skill. Now for the enhanced state from his ultimate. Sam first enters a complete combustion state and instantly gets his action advanced by 100%, and both his basic attack and his skill gets enhanced. He also gets various other buffs, starting with up to 50 flat speed increase and 50% weakness break efficiency for his enhanced basic attack and skill. Also, if the target is weakness broken, they take 12% extra damage. As for the duration of this whole state, well, he has something similar to Robin. After Sam enters his combustion state, a countdown timer will appear on the action order bar with a fixed speed of 90, giving it an action value of 111. And the moment the timer takes turn, Sam exits the combustion state. It's similar to Robin's ultimate, but where in Robin's ultimate, she's unable to take turns and you try to take as many turns as possible with your other characters, where in Sam's case, you want to take as many turns as possible with him before his combustion state ends. And that's just the core way to play Sam. Now let's look at his enhanced basic and skill. For the basic, it's pretty simple. He restores 20% of his HP and deals fire damage to a single enemy. As for the enhanced skill, Sam restores 35% of his HP and then he applies 5 weakness to the target, if they doesn't already have one. This is similar to Bootl's physical weakness implant, as it's guaranteed to land, even with 0 effect hit rate. And then he deals blast fire damage to 3 targets. Now here is an interesting part. For this enhanced skill, the damage also takes into account Sam's break effect. Like here it says 0.5 times his break effect plus 400% of Sam's attack. So let's say your Sam has 200% break effect. So the multiplier will be 0.5 times 200%. That is 100% plus 400%, which sums up to 500% of Sam's attack, which is quite an amount. And if you build more break effect on Sam, it says here that this attack's break effect is capped at 360%. And if your Sams were to reach that, then the multiplier will be increased by 180%, which is a lot. So building break effect on Sam is going to be the key factor. Now for his talent, it just reduces the damage Sam takes, and the lower his HP, the lower the damage received. It's good for him, as most of the time Sam will be at low HP because of the constant use of his skill. And also inside the combustion state, the damage reduction effect remains at its maximum, and also increases Sam's effect rest by 25%, which is pretty low to even matter, but that's only the first part of his talent. If energy is lower than 50% when the battle starts, he regenerates 50% energy, and when his energy reaches max, dispels all debuffs from Sam. This is the part that is quite awesome. The extra energy will allow Sam to enter combustion state on his first turn, and also the full cleanse on him is great, as unlike Robin's ultimate, which lets all her allies take turn immediately, in Sam's case, it's a 100% action advance. And some of you will say that it's the same thing, but it's not. Letting one immediately take turn means the character will take turn regardless of any kind of action delay or debuff on him. But for the 100% action advance, any action delay debuff can prevent one from taking action immediately. But this full cleanse is perfect for such issues. Lastly, his technique, which is an AoE fire weakness implant on the enemies, and deals decent fire damage as well. It's a really cool technique, not only because of the fire weakness implant, but also the animation for this is sick. If you have watched it, then you know what I'm talking about. Anyways, now let's look at his passives. The first one kind of enables Sam to do colorless damage. Like when he is in his combustion state, attacking enemies that doesn't have fire weakness will reduce half the amount of toughness of the original attack. So it's a lesser version of colorless damage. His second passive is going to be a big factor when it comes to building him. For every 100 attack after 2400, Sam gets 6% break effect up to 60%. So in order to max it out, you need to get 3.4k attack, which is pretty hard to get, but it's possible. I'm gonna discuss this in later parts of the video. And lastly, his third passive is a huge damage increase. If Sam's break effect is at or exceeds certain thresholds, he ignores defense when dealing damage. So if his break effect is over 250%, he ignores 30% defense. And if it is at 360%, which is the max break effect limit for Sam, he ignores 40% defense. So a 10% increase, which is still big enough to aim for, but not so big that you focus all your stats into building break effect. And this will be more clear in the build section. By the way, if you've reached this point of the video and like what you're watching, consider subscribing to the channel, as it does help this channel grow and motivates me to make more content for you guys. Now with the explanation part out of the way, let's discuss how we can build him. Now there are few things that straight up tells you how Sam is meant to be built and played, like his enhanced basic and skill, taking break effect as a multiplier, and one of his passives giving more break effect based on attack, and another one of his passive giving him shit ton of defense ignore if you reach certain break effect thresholds. All of these points to a break effect build. So how do we achieve that? As usual, I made this chart showing a temporary build to help you guys better understand his overall stat requirements. But first, let's look at all the gear I've used here. First is Lightcone. As usual, since this is the lowest of the lowest tier build, I didn't go for his signature or his best 4-star option. I've used the MOC Destruction Lightcone, which in this case doesn't really do much except for some healing and a bit of damage boost, both of which isn't really beneficial for a break build. Apart from his signature, which is obviously his best in slot, like look at it, this thing straight up gives 60% break effect and 15% damage taken at S1. It's obviously good for him, but you clearly doesn't need it. His best start is going to be the Misha Lightcone. This thing gives 28% break effect and a bit of crit rate at S1, both of which are great. But this is also a gacha Lightcone. On top of that, it's exclusive to the Lightcone banner. So unless you pull on the Lightcone banner, you won't get it, which also makes it not so FTP friendly. So I just use the MOC Lightcone. You can use the Hardastro Lightcone as well, but for a break focused build, attack or damage boost doesn't really matter. Of course, it will increase his normal damage, but since we are not building any crit on him, this Lightcone doesn't really provide that much value. You might as well use it on other destruction characters, like your Imbibed Lune or Jingliu, and they will have a bigger impact than Sam. After his Lightcone, let's talk about relics and ornaments. Well, up till now, there wasn't any good sets specifically for break teams, but in the next patch, some new relics and planar sets are coming. And these two sets are just so perfect for Sam. The relic set gives more defense ignore and the planar set gives speed and a lot of break effect if you hit a 5 weak enemy, which is perfect as Sam's skill can implant 5 weakness. Both perfectly synergizes with Sam and is way better than other sets. So you guys better pack your bags and prepare yourself. You might need to live in that domain for a few months. Anyways, now for the main part, stats. Well, there are 3 things that matters for Sam: attack, speed and break effect. Let's start with attack. You want to reach 3.4k attack on your Sam, or at least close to it, to maximize his passive that gives break effect based on his attack. It's not that hard to reach if you use an attack body and an attack sphere, but if you're still struggling, you can use a Destruction Lightcone that gives attack. Next is speed, 134 minimum, and after that you can go as high as you want. Now 134 is the minimum because it lets you take 3 turns in his enhanced state. His ultimate's combustion state has a cooldown with a speed of 90. Similar to Robin, and you want to take as many turns as you can before the state ends. So we can do a simple math here to figure out how many turns are achievable for a decently built Sam. And the answer is 3 turns with 134 speed. It goes like this. The timer got a speed of 90, giving it an action value of 111. And his ultimate also gives Sam a 100% action advance, allowing him to take a turn immediately. And then gives him 50 flat speed, which if you add to 134, it becomes 184, giving him an action value of 54. If we were to line that correctly, Sam's first turn will be at the very start because of the 100% action advance, the second turn will be at 54 action value, and the third turn will be at 108 action value. And after that, the timer will take turn at 111 action value. So this is going to be the main playstyle, rotation, whatever you want to call it, for Sam in general. Of course, using a character like Bronya or Sparkle can increase the number of turns, but if you want to take more than 3 turns without Sparkle or Bronya, then you need to have over 270 speed, which is unrealistic. So 134 is the best point to aim for. Finally, his break effect. Well, there is this threshold of 360% break effect. 1. His skill's additional multiplier won't count more than 360, and his passive gives the most amount of defense ignore at 360% break effect. But that seems a bit unrealistic. Like reaching 300% break effect on Bootil alone seemed hard. But just like that video, I'll be giving you the most efficient way to get that. You can see that I only have just over 250% break effect. And that's the point I want you guys to aim for. 250% break effect from relics and base stats. And here are the steps to achieve that. Sam gets about 37% from his bonus stats, 60% from his passives, then 60% from the new relic set, and 40% from the new planar ornaments. A break effect rope will give you 64%, and with 50% break effect from substats, you reach 268% break effect. Easy. And don't you dare say that 50% from substat is hard to achieve. No way. Except the rope, there are 5 pieces left to get that. And you don't need any crit rate or crit damage. Just get attack, speed and break effect. And your build is pretty much done. He's perfectly fine as he is now. Even if you don't reach 360% and lose out on 10% extra defense ignore. And that is because we are already getting so much defense ignore, 30% from his passives and then 18% from the new relics is already at 48%. And then adding 10% extra will just result in about 6 to 7% damage increase, which is not super insane for a difference. But of course, it's not just that. having higher break effect will result in higher break damage. So it's preferable to reach 360%, and that is going to happen through supports. The usual two characters, May, who can give up to 50% break effect if you use the Watchmaker set, and Harmony Trailblazer. With his E4 and his ultimate, he can easily provide over 50% break effect to his team, and that will make Sam's break effect reach 360%. It's totally easy to achieve these stat goals. I usually take mid-roll substats when calculating these builds, but for this, I went ahead and downgraded myself even more. All the substats that are calculated here are at the lowest rolls. So no matter what, you guys will be able to build a way better Sam than this. If you just get his Lightcone, or if you have the Misha Lightcone, then building him becomes even easier. But that aside, there's another question that you guys might be having, and that's going to be, is the break build is the only way to play Sam? Does a crit build Sam not good enough? Well, for that question specifically, I went ahead and made this other build. This one is kind of a hybrid build, and sure, this build also has its benefits. Like break damage are great, but the damage only takes effect at the point of breaking an enemy. And sure, Sam does get extra 50% weakness break efficiency from his ultimate, so he can break constantly. But still, building full break effect can give you those big numbers while breaking, but outside of that, when the target is already broken, at that time the damage will be super low, since we didn't build any crit. And opposite to that, if you do build crit on Sam, you do get a bit of damage increase outside of breaks, but not that much. And that is because with low break effect, you don't get the extra defense ignored from neither his passive nor his relic sets. So the total damage ends up becoming lower than the break build. So to answer your question, that is break build better than the crit build on Sam? The answer is yes, it is better. But that's only the answer to that very question. The issue still remains. Break builds are very inconsistent with their damage output. These builds can deal massive damage when breaking, but close to nothing outside of breaks. And especially true for Sam, since he doesn't really have any other way to deal damage. Like even Boothill, who is also a break DPS, he's got his talent that lets him deal extra break damage when the enemy is at a broken state, making his damage output pretty consistent throughout his kit. But Sam doesn't have anything like that. And to fix that, a necessary support comes into play. And I'm saying necessary because almost all of you guys will play your Sam with this support, and that is the Harmony Trailblazer. He fixes the inconsistency of break DPSs with his new mechanic that is super breaks. To all who don't know, when Harmony MC uses his ultimate, he gives all his allies the ability to deal super break damage to the opponent. It's similar to break damage, but it happens when you attack an enemy that is already at a broken state. So when Sam breaks the enemy, he deals his normal break damage, and after that, he deals consistent super break damage. And the damage output is pretty good. You can clearly see here. These numbers are not normal. I've taken into account that the MC has 120% break effect, so he can give around 48% break effect to his teammates with his ultimate and his E4. But you guys can build more break effect on him to get more damage. Like you can easily reach 200% break effect on your Harmony MC with memories of the past. He is definitely a necessity for Sam to perform great. But since we are talking about supports, let's add May to the mix. She gives 68% damage boost, 50% break effect, 25% rest penetration, 10% speed, and 50% weakness break efficiency. And that matters. Like if you look at this formula, for the normal break damage, the max toughness of the enemy is taken as a value. Whereas with super breaks, the toughness damage of the unit is taken. So 50% weakness break efficiency means more toughness damage, and that will result in more super break damage. You can see the damage that Sam can dish out with Harmony MC and May as supports. Now if you were to add another one, Gallagher, who is also great for break teams with his besotted debuff and great skill point generation, the damage becomes even higher. Keep in mind that I'm still using a whatever Lightcone and a very crappy build, so the damage can go way higher than this. It's the beginning of the break meta, and these three units are going to dominate it. You'll see more and more teams using break builds, so you better start building these three characters. Overall, Sam is looking to be an awesome break DPS, one of the best. I don't want to compare him to others just yet, as his kit might change down the line. But for now, he's going to be one of the best DPSs in Honkai Star Rail. And that's it for me. That was my first impressions on Firefly or Sam's kit. I know I'm pretty late with this video, but I wanted to cover every detail thoroughly, so that you guys will have a proper understanding of his kit. As usual, you can expect a full build guide right after the version livestream. But before that, I'll be covering Jade's kit in my next video, so stay tuned for that. I tried to cover everything I could, but if you have any other questions, feel free to ask them in the comments, and I'll be sure to answer. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you next time.